Chapter 11. The Nests of the Missel Thrush. For 2 or 3 minutes, he stood looking around him, while Mary watched him, and then he began to walk about softly, even more lightly than Mary had walked the first time. She found herself inside the 4 walls. His eyes seemed to be taking in everything, the gray trees with the gray creepers climbing over them and hanging from their branches, the tangle on the walls and among the grass, the evergreen alcoves with the stone seats and the tall flower urns standing in them. "I never thought I'd see this place," he said at last in a whisper. "Did you know about it?" asked Mary. She had spoken aloud and made a clear sign to her. "We must talk low," he said, "or someone will hear us and wonder what's to do in here." "Oh, I forgot," said Mary, feeling frightened and putting her hand quickly against her mouth. "Did you know about the garden?" she asked again, when she had recovered herself. Dixon nodded. "Martha told me there was one, as no one ever went inside," he answered. "Us used to wonder what it was like." He stopped and looked around at the lovely gray tangle about him. His eyes looked queerly happy. The nestles will be here come springtime," he said. "It'll be the safest place in England. No one's ever come in near tangles with trees and roses to build in. I wonder how the birds on the moor don't build here." Mistress Mary put her hand on his arm again, without knowing it. "Will there be roses?" she whispered. "Can you tell? I thought perhaps they were all dead." "No, not them. Not all of them," he answered. "Look here." He stepped over to the nearest tree. An old one with gray lichen all over its bark, but upholding a curtain of tangled sprays and branches. He took a thick knife out of his pocket and opened up one of its blades. "There's lots of dead wood as ought to be cut out," he said. "And there's a lot of old wood. It made some new last year. This here is a new bit." And he touched a shoot which looked brownish-green instead of hard, dry gray. Mary touched it herself in an eager, reverent way. "That one?" she said. "Is that one quite alive?" Dixon curved his wide, smiling mouth. "It's as wick as you or me," he said, and Mary remembered that Martha had told her that wick meant alive or lively. "I'm glad it's wick," she cried out in her whisper. "I want all of them to be wick. Let us go around the garden and count how many wick ones there are." She quite panted with eagerness, and Dixon was as eager as she was. They went from tree to tree, from bush to bush. Dixon carried his knife in his hands and showed her things which she thought wonderful. "They run wild," he said, "but the strongest ones have fair thrived on it. The delicate ones have dried out, but the others have grown and growed and spread till they's a wonder. See here." And he pulled down a thick, gray, dry-looking branch. "A body might think this was dead wood, but I don't believe it is, down to the root. I'll cut it low and see." He knelt with his knife and cut the lifeless-looking branch through, not far above the earth. "There," he said exuberantly. "I told thee, there's green in the wood yet. Look at it." Mary was down on her knees before he spoke, gazing with all of her might. "When it looks a bit greenish and juicy like that, it's wick," he explained. "The inside's dry and breaks easy, like this piece I've cut off. It's done for. There's a big root here as all of this live wood sprung out of it. And if the old wood's cut off and it's dug around and took care of, it'll be—" He stopped and lifted his face to look at the climbing and hanging sprays above him. "There'll be a fountain of roses here this summer." They went from bush to bush and from tree to tree. He was very strong and clever with his knife, and knew how to cut the dry and dead wood away, and could tell when an unpromising bough or twig still had green life in it. In the course of half of an hour, Mary thought she could tell too, and when she cut through a lifeless-looking branch, she would cry out joyfully under her breath when she caught sight of the last shade of moist green. The spade and hoe and fork were very useful. He showed her how to use the fork while he dug about the roots and spade and stirred the earth and let the air in. They were working industriously around one of the biggest standard roses when he caught sight of something which made him utter an exclamation of surprise. "Why," he cried, pointing to the grass a few feet away, "who did that there?" It was one of Mary's own little clearings around the pale green points. "Why, I thought I didn't know anything about gardening," he exclaimed. "I don't," she answered, "but they were so little and the grass was so thick and strong, and they looked as if they had no room to breathe. So I made a place for them. I don't even know what they are." Dixon went and knelt down by them, smiling his wide smile. "That was right," he said. "A Ghana couldn't have told thee better. They'll grow up now like Jack's beanstalk. They're Cretaceous and snowdrops, and these here is Narcissians," turning to another patch. "And here's daffodilly downs. They will be a sight." He ran from one clearing to another. "That has done a lot of work for such a little wrench," he said, looking her over. "I'm growing fatter," said Mary, "and I'm growing stronger. I used to always be tired. When I dig, I'm not tired at all. I like the smell of the earth when it's turned up." "It's rare good for thee," he said, nodding his head wisely. "There's naught as nice as the smell of the clean earth except the smell of growing things when the rain falls on 'em. I get out on the moor many a day when it's raining. I lie under a bush and listen to the soft whisper that drops on the heather, and I just sniff and sniff. My nose then quivers like a rabbit's, mother says." "Do you never catch cold?" inquired Mary, gazing at him wonderingly. She had never seen such a funny boy, or such a nice one. "Not me," he said, grinning. "I've never catch cold since I was born. I wasn't brought up nest enough. I've chased about the moor in all the weathers as the rabbit does. And mother says I've sniffed up too much fresh air for 12 years to ever get sniffing with cold. I'm as tough as a whitethorn knobstick." He was working all the time he was talking. Mary was following him and helping him with her fork or the trowel. "There's a lot of work to do here," he said, looking about quite exuberantly. "Will you come again and help me do it?" Mary begged. "I'm sure I can help too. I can dig and pull up weeds and do whatever you tell me to. Oh, do come, Dixon." "I'll come every day if that wants me, rain or shine," he said stoutly. "It's the best thing I've had in my life, sitting here waking up a garden." "If you will come," said Mary, "if you will help me to make it alive, I don't know what I'll do," she ended helplessly. "What could you do for a boy like that?" "I'll tell thee what thou'll do," said Dixon, with his happy grin. "Thou'll get fat, and thou'll get hungry as a young fox, and thou'll learn how to talk to the robin the same as I do. We'll have a lot of fun." He began to walk about, looking up in the trees and at the walls and brushes with a thoughtful expression. "I wouldn't want to make it look like a gardener's garden, all clipped and speck and span, would you?" he said. "It's nicer like this with things running wild and swinging and catching hold of each other." "Don't let us make it tidy," said Mary anxiously. "It wouldn't seem like a secret garden if it was tidy." Dixon stood rubbing his rusty red head with a rather puzzled look. "It's a secret garden, sure enough," he said, "but it seems like someone beside the robin must have been in it since it was shut up 10 years ago." "But how could it have been done?" said Mary. He was examining a branch of a standard rose, and he shook his head. "Aye, how could it?" he murmured. "But the door locked and the key buried." Mistress Mary felt that however many times she lived, she would never forget that first morning when her garden began to grow. Of course, it did seem to begin to grow for her that morning. But when Dixon began to clear the places to plant seeds, she remembered what Basil had sung at her when he wanted to tease her. "Are there any flowers that look like bells?" she inquired. "Lilies at the valley does," he answered, digging away with the trowel. "And there's caterpillar bells and campanules." "Let's plant some," said Mary. "There's lilies at the valleys here already. I saw them. They've grown too close, and we'll have to separate them, but there's plenty. The other ones take 2 years to bloom from seed, but I can bring you some bits of plants from our cottage garden. Why does that want them?" Then Mary told him about Basil and his brothers and sisters in India, and how she had hated them, and of their calling her Mistress Mary quite contrary. "They used to dance around and sing at me. They sang, 'Mistress Mary, quite contrary, how does your garden grow, with silver bells and cockle shells and marigolds all in a row?' I just remembered it, and it made me wonder if they were really flowers like silver bells." She frowned a little and gave her trowel a rather pitiful dig into the earth. "I wasn't as contrary as they were." But Dixon laughed. He said, as he crumbled the rich black soil. She saw he was sniffing up the scent of it. "Doesn't seem to be no need for one to be contrary when there's flowers and such, and such friendly wild things running about making homes for themselves, building nests and singing and whistling, does there?" Mary, kneeling by him holding the seeds, looked at him and stopped frowning. "Dixon," she said, You are as nice as Martha said you were. I like you, and you make the fifth person. I never thought I should like 5 people. Dickon sat up on his heels as Martha did when she was polishing the grate. He did look funny and delightful, Mary thought, with his round blue eyes and red cheeks and happy-looking turned-up nose. Only 5 folk that I likes, he said. Who was the other 4? Your mother and Martha. Mary checked them off on her fingers, and the Robin and Ben Weatherstaff. Dickon laughed so hard that he was obliged to stifle the sound by putting his arm over his mouth. I know that I think I'm a queer lad, he said, but I think thou art the queerest little lass I ever saw. Then Mary did a strange thing. She leaned forward and asked him a question she had never dreamed of asking anyone before. She tried to ask it in Yorkshire because that was his language, and in India a native was always pleased if he knew his speech. Does thou like me? She said. He answered heartily. That I does. I likes thee wonderful, and so does the robin, I do believe. That's 2 of them, then, said Mary. That's 2 for me. And then they began to work harder than ever and more joyfully. Mary was startled and sorry when she heard the big clock in the courtyard strike the hour of her midday dinner. I shall have to go, she said mournfully. And you'll have to go too, won't you? Dickon grinned. My dinner's easy to carry about with me, he said. Mother always lets me put a bit of something in my pocket. He picked up his coat from the grass and brought out of a pocket a lumpy little bundle tied up in a quite clean, coarse blue and white handkerchief. It held 2 thick pieces of bread with a slice of something laid between them. It's often not bit bread, he said, but I've got a fine slice of bacon with it today. Mary thought it looked a queer dinner, but he seemed ready to enjoy it. Run on and get thy victuals, he said. I'll be done with mine first. I'll get some more work done before I start back home. He sat down with his back against a tree. I'll call the robin up, he said, and I'll give him the rind of the bacon to peck at. They likes bits of fat wonderful. Mary could scarcely bear to leave him. Suddenly it seemed as if he might be a sort of wood fairy who might be gone when she came into the garden again. He seemed too good to be true. She went slowly, halfway to the door in the wall, and then stopped and went back. Whatever happens, you never would tell, she said. His poppy-colored cheeks were distended with his first big bite of bread and bacon, but he managed to smile encouragingly. If thou was a whistle thrush and showed me where thy nest was, does thou think I'd tell anyone? Not me, he said. Thou art safe as a missel thrush. And she was quite sure she was.